Pregame.com.
I'm Vegas Runner. He's Bryan Leonard, going to break down NL East matchup. Phillies at Atlanta. Halladay, Hudson. First, going to tell you real quickly why the hat's on. Why it's the Venetian hat. Many of you know I play blackjack, and in 2010 I played for 8-9 months. We went on a tour, called it our ATM tour. Just we're hitting as many casinos as possible. Make a long story short, I got too much heat and had to get backed off. So we hung it up for a while. Baseball season affords me some extra time to do some things that I couldn't when football, basketball's here. Make a long story short, a friend of mine, born in New York and now lives out in Newport Beach, has some property here, and he comes every 6 weeks or so, and this guy bets big money. He's a big money player. And when he comes, he always asks me to go with him and put in some sessions. So earlier this week, he stays about 10 days. We went to the mansions at the MGM because this guy can't talk him into playing $25 tables. So we get no heat. He's got to go to the high limit to make it worth his while. So we go, we buy in, not buy in crazy to attract no attention. And there, people are betting $100,000 a hand. So we weren't going to try to attract any attention. Within 15 minutes, Brian, I give no ID, no nothing. They ask, if I want to get rated. I always say no. He gets rated. Which I know attracts attention not to get rated, but I have the best excuse. And this is a good one. I can't believe I'm going to share it with you, but I say, no way. My wife will know I'm gambling again when you guys start sending mailers to the house. And I throw in the again so they think, oh, this guy's got a history of gambling problems. So, so if they see pushing, they're thinking, oh, he's on tilt. So anyway, we sit down, we buy in. I'm down about 700. He's down about 400 or 500 within like 5 minutes, not even the first double deck shoes done. Lady comes over with 2 security guards, knows my first and last name that's on my passport, not my driver's license, my Greek name, and says, you can't play here. I said, excuse me? She says, you're not allowed to play here. I said, what do you mean I can't play here? She says, you're not allowed to play blackjack at any MGM property, and we've made a managerial decision. You can't play anything in the MGM. I said, you mean I can't play even slots or anything? She goes, absolutely not. You can't play anything. Next step is you're 86 from the property, and we're going to read you the Trespass Act. So I couldn't hold it no more. I had to use the casino line. I said, let's say I want to get one of those sandwiches that I really like from the deli. And my buddy fell off the chair. She walked away mad. We colored up. We leave. And he says, we got to make you look like a tourist. So he went on a little casino splurge and picked up like 8 or 9 hats, a couple Shadow Creek golf t-shirts, golf shirts. So until he leaves, I'm going to have to put on a little disguise when we play. So that's what's on with the hats. But back to what's more important, the pick, Atlanta Phillies. We made the line Hudson -120, total 8. This is your best bet. Who do you like?
To get back to the story for a second, I'm a little bit intrigued. So supposedly, you come off as a guy who
is a gambler.
Is a gambling problem. His wife, he doesn't want his wife to find out. In the casinos, they claim to not want problem gamblers.
They even have the thing. When the fun stops, that's what the brochure's called.
But you actually admit your addiction, and they gladly let you pay.
And they say cocktails. Cocktails. They ask if you want cocktails. And that's the funny. And before, what I've read, because there's a lot of books on counter surveillance, even written by ex-surveillance guys, Cellini wrote the best one. But what they said was that facial recognition casinos have had for a long time now, but you got to remember, most surveillance, top guys are 50 years old plus. And I've trying to teach my mom how to use a cell phone and the internet, it's not an easy thing to do. So they haven't been good at facial recognition, but now they're getting a lot of young kids who are, masters at using technology like that, and they've gotten really good at it in the high limit pit. At the other tables in the casino floor, you're fine. They have to have a perfect square of your face for it to work, and more times than not, they're only going to run it if they see something suspicious. And on the casino floor, they're looking for thieves and hookers and stuff like that more than they're looking for advantage players. But in the high limit pit, where they have millions to protect, they're running everyone through facial recognition, is what I just found out.
Awesome. Good information.
What's your lock? Lock. We're going to call it this week.
It's on my house. There's no such thing as a lock in sports betting. But
I love it.
But I'll take a look at this game. Halladay and Hudson, two big-name pitchers, especially with Halladay having a bad season, obviously a bad season from his point. He was injured. First came back from the DL, didn't pitch overly well. I believe he gave up 6 runs in 6 innings. In fact, his last 3 starts, 8.31 ERA. But for the most part, people look at Philadelphia starting to hit the ball really well right now, and you've got Halladay on the mound. And historically, he's done very well against the Braves.
Yeah.
2.89 ERA this decade against them. But Hudson's a pitcher I usually like to back. He's not one of these big strikeout pitchers. He's a guy that puts a ball in play, and so he gets some advantages in that regard because he's not the big strikeout pitcher, which
who needs control all the time.
That's right. That's right. He's done pretty well against the Phillies in his career too. But I'm going to take a look at the over in this game. Now Hudson at home's got a 5.01 ERA on the season. Not his typical season there. But you got two teams that hit the ball very well. You got two big-name pitchers who are not having their best seasons. And I think we're going to get a little bit of an advantage here. And it's also lately been a road-dominated series. Philadelphia has won 5 out of the last 6 here in Atlanta, where Atlanta swept Philadelphia all 3 games they played up there earlier this year. So they were higher-scoring games. So I've got a situation here. We made the total 8.
Yeah.
And I think, traditionally, if you get these two together, 8's slightly high, actually. But when you take a look at the way these two teams have played this year.
And the season the pitchers are having.
And the offense is Philadelphia all year long. They've been missing all their big bats. Now they're getting their big bats back. But even when they didn't have the big bats, they're scoring a lot of runs. We're cleaning up on the overs earlier this season. So we're looking at that number at 8. I'm going to look for the game to go over.
I got to agree with you. Philadelphia is one of those teams that's a huge disappointment. And when you look at Halladay, surprisingly, when I looked at his, them sabermetric stats of value over replacement player and how many wins he's worth at a team, believe it or not, he's only worth a half a win to the Philadelphia Phillies compared to Verlander, who's worth 3 wins to Detroit. And I know a lot of, bettors are thinking, Verlander's only worth 3 wins. That's as good as it gets for a single player. And Halladay, surprisingly, this year, he's pitched 13 games. They're only 4-5. His record's 4-5 in 13 games. Only worth a half a win. He's not having that kind of season. I could see Atlanta bats getting to him, and I agree with you with Hudson. Guy only averages 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he will allow the ball to get into play. And I think these Phillies bats will heat up and stay hot now that they got some healthy bats in the lineup. And I could see this definitely going over the total of 8. And because they're big, their names carry so much, undervalue, I think we're going to find value in the over, meaning, when you get the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens, the defense is so overvalued, you're going to get lower totals. And when you hear Halladay, when you hear Hudson, and them two playing each other, the total is going to be lower than it really should be. And I think the recreational bettors are going to see 8 and think that may be a little too high. But I don't think it is. I agree with you there.
Yeah, when I do a lot of and I've had a really good season on Major League Baseball totals, one of the things I've noticed is when you get the high-profile pitchers, you get very low lines, and the offenses still perform well. Because they're going to go into this game and say, well, we're going against Halladay. If we can get 4 runs, we're in pretty good shape. So they're more careful with their bats. They don't throw their bats away. It's not like you're playing a journeyman pitcher.
Yeah.
Well, he says, if I don't get him this time, I'll get him next time. We're going to score 6 runs against this guy. So you've got both offenses concentrating a lot more in a game like this because they know that 1 run is a big deal. So they're able to get over that total, and it's worked out all season long.
I agree. And finally, the last point, when you look at Hudson, he does give up walks. And when the Phillies are 8th in stolen bases, meaning you get a guy walk the first base, more times than not, he's going to get in scoring position. And when you give up walks, that gets guys on the base and drive in a lot more runs that way. You hit a long ball with the players on base, you're scoring 2-3 runs instead of solo runs. Exactly. So I agree with you. We're going to look to go over 8. That's Brian's pick for this week. That's going to do it for our videos covering Saturday and Sunday's marquee games. Don't forget, go to pregame.tv. Plenty of videos there from other cappers. We'll be back next week. Football's almost here, brother. I know you're getting ready.
I can't wait.
Me and you both.